An experience of oneness. In the deep wilderness, alone for 24 hours, I grew ever more anxious. Unable to ignore my growing unease, I remembered that every unpleasant feeling holds a hidden lesson. Just be present, I reminded myself, and tuned in to the sights, sounds, and smells around me. I alternated between focusing on the tiniest of details and the big picture tapestry nature displayed for my enjoyment. The incessant buzzing of the bees and horseflies was impossible to ignore, but soon I became aware of the subtler sounds of the water lapping at the shoreline, the creaking of a leaning tree rubbing against his neighbors, and the rustle of some unseen animal in the reeds. Together they played a mesmerizing symphony that held my attention without effort. The longer I sat completely still, the more my discomfort eased. My gaze was drawn upward, and I became spellbound by the few clouds in the sky. They wafted up behind the volcano, then drifted seductively around to the front as if caressing the craggy giant before drifting off in search of another lover. Powerful as he appeared at first glance, the mountain became my friend. After a while, I lowered my gaze and focused on the forest at the far side of the lake. Standing tall and lined up naturally in rows, I marveled at how the trees provided a home to the birds, a resting place for the chipmunks, and protection for my tent. I felt a strange kinship with these silent sentries, and the trees became my brothers. Shifting to the right, I noticed the horizontal line where sun and shade met, just below the treetops. I chose a spot just a bit higher in the pines and watched to see how long it would take the darkness to travel there. Ever so slowly, my sister, the sun, made her imminent departure known. I looked down, and my hands laying face up in my lap snagged my attention. As I stared at them, I became aware of the inaudible buzzing beneath my skin. Like the bees working incessantly to serve the queen bee, I realized that the trillions of cells beneath my skin never stopped working to serve my physical body. I felt a sudden urge to cry and recognized not sadness, but gratitude for insights that now filled my mind with uncommon clarity. Nothing was separate. I had read this, I had taught it, but in that instant, I had the visceral, full-bodied experience of it. From the tiniest cells within me to the largest planets without, extending farther than my human eyes could see in either direction, life was flowing. I was one tiny part of that flow, no more or less significant than a single cell in my body or the largest sun in any of countless solar systems. I realized in that moment that alone is strictly a human concept, born of our false belief in separation from our source, from life itself. The trees and the bees had no concept of separation. They simply existed. They knew nothing of loneliness or fear, only this perfect presence that I had become part of in the process of doing nothing. Far from boring, I was immersed in the incredible fullness of being. Nature knew nothing of that so human feeling of emptiness that had earlier taunted me with tendrils of fear. Empty, I realized, is as much a human construct as alone. This was the infamous illusion so many spiritual teachers speak of. Life in all its fullness, with its inexhaustible potential, surrounded me. The experience of it could not be denied, for I, in my being, was part of it. To think that I would possibly be only human and therefore alone while surrounded by countless companions from the cellular level to the galactic was delusional. I was both human and soul, and I had the choice to feel alone or to dissolve into the invisible unity of life. I lowered my head and glanced at my yellow t-shirt. The picture across my chest showed 2 hiking boots with laces that curled up and around to form a perfect heart. The words beneath the boots read, "Life is good." If I had packed a pen, in that moment I would have used it to deface a perfectly good shirt by crossing out one of the O's in the word good. Life is good because life is God, and God is life itself in all its limitless forms. I became aware that my uneasy feelings had vanished. The unexpected insights had not arrived in a sudden glorious burst, but had wafted over me as slowly as the receding light of the setting sun. What remained was not momentary giddiness or a temporary spiritual high, but a soothing sense of peace and contentment that I knew I would never forget.